All right, thank you. So I'm Leslie Gwartney. I am the Raven Scholars Program Coordinator. I've been doing this since 2016, so pretty seasoned at this point. What sort of challenges individuals on the autism spectrum face in entering higher education. The Raven Scholars Program does serve students seeking a four-year degree, so it's a little different than some of the other programs out there. And I'm just going to go over an overview of what the program does, what sort of services we provide, and also just give you some ideas of the kinds of pitfalls that I see students entering higher education that they fall into, and giving you some ideas and things to work on now in high school that might be beneficial in making sure that your students are fully equipped and ready, or if you are a student, that you are working on these skills now and learning them and being prepared for when you're going to be entering a higher education. So the Raven Scholars Program specifically is for students on the autism spectrum. It's a supported transition program. So the idea is really that we are helping students become more independent as they move along. Some of the services that we provide, I'm going to go into a little more detail on each of these, but just an overview. We provide planning meetings. We provide an academic and social skills course, an individualized action plan for each student that we renew each semester. There's a Raven Scholars Program advisor. Currently, that would be me, but if we were to add additional full-time staff, that might be another individual. Peer mentor support. We also have monthly social events. We provide workshops, and we're just next year starting to do groups where we'll have peer-to-peer conversations about different challenges and experiences in college. Program advocacy and intervention. And we have a student lounge right at the heart of the U of I campus in the Idaho Student Union building. And if needed, if we see trouble academically or socially, a behavior plan. So Raven Scholars Program mission. The Raven Scholars Program supports University of Idaho students who are on the autism spectrum by providing coordination of campus services, peer mentoring, social and life skills coaching, supported decision-making, and strategies to improve academic, social, and life skills. We also have 4 goals in our program. One is to empower program participants to achieve academic success and participate fully in the university experience. We want to provide insight, support, and knowledge about autism to members of the campus community. We enrich the diversity of campus culture through the inclusion of people who are on the autism spectrum, and encourage program participants to develop meaningful careers and make valuable contributions to their communities. Starting this fall, we're going to be enacting a tiered service model. And so what this is, essentially the idea is that students who are coming in at the freshman level or who may be transferring from other community colleges are going to need a higher level of support than students who are returning for their sophomore, junior year, who maybe are seniors and are pretty much independent in their academic needs. So tier 1 is what we would expect most high school students to be entering as. They would be required to have 1 weekly planning meeting a week. Some need more than that. They might need 2. Then we have a class, the INTR 101. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But that class is really designed to get students academically prepared for the needs of college learning. And then we also talk about social and life skills. For a tier 1 students, that is required unless they have like their class, it overlaps on class they need for their major. Otherwise, we want students enrolling in that class who are in tier 1. We also have optional social skills and academic coaching. That would be sort of on an as needed basis. It might be temporary, not something that goes throughout the entire semester, or it might be something where a student really wants to learn better social skills, better how to have conversations, or better understanding of the unwritten rules and expectations. And then, as I mentioned, a behavior plan. That would only be if a student was either, in danger of failing a class, or maybe had some issues with housing or the Dean of Students office, or maybe even the police department, where they needed some extra support in figuring out how to overcome those setbacks in order to be successful. And then for all students, tiers 1 through 3, all of them would have access to these major parts of the program. So each semester I sit down with each student and we develop an action plan. What that means is we're looking at each individual's goals, where their strengths are, and what strategies that we want to put in place. So that might be setting them up with tutoring, or that might be making sure that they're connected to the counseling and testing center, or that they're getting their accommodations renewed through the Center for Disability Access and Resources. And then program advocacy, that's when perhaps a student has tried to reach out to an instructor or to a staff member and they're being misunderstood and their needs are not being met. I might step in and mediate a conversation about what the student needs, and help communicate to the student what the situation requires and help facilitate that in a more proactive way. I am listed as an advisor for all of the Raven Scholars, and what that means is that I'm going to see any academic flags, for example, early warning grades, or if a student has had some kind of a setback with the Dean of Students Office or conduct, or if there's a red flag raised by an instructor. So I will see those. And I'm also able to help make sure that students are on board with when they need to meet with their academic advisor to get ready to register for classes and things like that. As I mentioned, we provide monthly social events, and I'll give you some examples of those in just a minute. And we have peer mentor support. So the peer mentors are students. They are juniors or seniors. I have had former Raven Scholars become peer mentors. So that's certainly not something that's closed off to current Raven Scholars, if that's something they're interested in. And that peer-to-peer support is really designed not only to facilitate more of that social connection and community feel, but also just, to include individuals in the autism spectrum in those conversations to make them feel, like they're part of the larger community. As I mentioned, we have the student lounge, discussion groups, and workshops as well. So when we move to tier 2 and 3, you can see that these upper level things, the planning meetings, the class, the social skills and academic coaching, behavior plans, those are the sort of things that we would expect would be a reduced need after several semesters in the program and having learned these skills. For tier 2, an individual still might meet, they might come in every week, but they just wouldn't be meeting with a staff member like me. They might be checking in with peer mentors or something like that. They can take the class INTR, and they can take it for up to 6 credits total. So we usually recommend 2 credits for the first 2 semesters, but then a student can come back just for that time management piece for 1 additional credit for a total of 6 credits. And then again, all those other things are optional and probably would be completely phased out by tier 3, who would probably only be part of the program because they enjoyed the social supports and having that community feeling. So just to give you an example of the difference between tier 1 and tier 2, tier 1 students are most often our incoming freshmen, sometimes transfer students. And so I set aside to begin with usually 60 minutes per week. Sometimes students don't need that whole 60 minutes. We might not use that whole 60 minutes each week, but 1 to 2 times a week, depending on the needs of the individual. In those meetings, we would be going over every single class. We might be filling out a physical planner or digital planner. We would be making sure that they're scheduling their exams through the Center for Disability Access and Resources if they had accommodated time or reduced distraction. We'd be making sure that they knew when the subjects that they needed tutoring were offered, or setting them up with student support services for one-on-one tutoring, helping them figure out where their instructor's office hours are, and making sure that they have, maybe a good list of questions going in, or I can help them even facilitate that email, make sure that they're using proper titles and that they're asking clear questions and getting their needs met during that time. I also check in on things that other programs typically don't address. Things like self-care, like if students are managing their medications, if they're making sure to eat regular meals, getting out of their dorm rooms, not isolating, maybe getting some exercise, and then hygiene, just making sure that they're taking care of those things in their living space. So those are issues that probably wouldn't be addressed in other programs like this counseling and testing center or tutoring, for example. And then, as I mentioned, social and academic coaching, that really depends on the needs of the individual. So it can be anything from like reading social stories to talking about social norms to addressing specific behaviors that have been problematic and brought to my attention, and helping individuals figure out how to overcome those, and just, study skills, making flashcards, those kinds of things could all be part of that. And then just we communicate, we talk about what's upcoming at the university level, what's upcoming at the Raven Scholars level, just to help make students make those connections, if they're interested in joining a club or, learning more about different events that we're also having that conversation to connect them with individuals outside of the program. So then when we move to tier 2, this would be, our sophomores, juniors, we reduce that meeting time, probably 30 minutes, 1 to 2 times a month, depending on the individual and their needs. We would be doing a more generalized check-in. We're not going to be filling out planners. It's much more hands-off, but we are communicating about resources as needed. We're making sure that an individual knows how to make an appointment with the writing center, or that they know how to look up tutoring, or that they know how to make an appointment with the counseling and testing center, that they've renewed their Center for Disability Access and Resources accommodations for the semester. And then just overall general well-being and needs. And then as needed, social and academic coaching, more on a situational basis, probably in tier 2. And then just communicating about the program events, making sure that they feel invited and that they know that they're welcome, and we want them there for those monthly events, and to just drop into the student lounge, between classes, just to hang out or whatever. And then if we do see issues, we're going to schedule a follow-up as needed. If I see those red flags as well as an advisor, I would probably be scheduling those follow-ups. Maybe we'd be meeting weekly for a while until they got back on track. So just to give you a little clearer understanding about the class, INTR, Focus on Success, is we spend the entire day on Monday. I do a short lesson that's related to academic success. So like overcoming procrastination, or how to study for an exam, or just different study tricks and tips for, success, how to make a writing center appointment, what resources are on campus. And then we dive right into it. And this is very much each student. I provide this form. It's called a dedicated planning form. And if a student has like a planner or an app or a calendar that they can reliably use, absolutely, I encourage that 100%. But for those students who don't have the structure, this has been a really successful model of just providing that structure for them. So they know for each class, they need to be figuring out, what do I need to read? What assignments are due? What quizzes do I maybe have coming up? Do I need to schedule an exam with the Center for Disability Access and Resources? And then they actually schedule what time of day that they're going to be working on those assignments. So they might know that they have something due Tuesday morning, so they're going to be setting aside some time on Monday to be working on that. And this is for each class they go through. And this is what they're expected to be spending their time doing. They have to submit these to me so that I can see they're actually doing it each week, and I can read through and make sure that it looks like they're planning ahead. I have a pretty good idea of most of the formats of the freshman classes by now, and so I can really see that if students are maybe not renewing weekly, maybe there's something I need to check in on. And then Wednesdays, we switch it up quite a bit. We do social skills in the fall, and we do life skills in the spring. I'll give you some examples of those. So on the first column, this would be our fall semester, some of our topics for social skills. So we talk about self-advocacy, how to make sure that individuals are addressing the issues, that they're overcoming that fear of speaking up, but also that they know how to speak up, when to speak up, what tools they need to have already, gone through, what resources they've already looked at before they bring that problem to somebody else. So really coaching them up on how to be better self-advocates and how to be more successful when they do need help. We talk about friendships. We talk about the difference between somebody that you might be in a group with in a classroom versus an acquaintance versus a budding friendship versus a bonded friendship. And just understanding the expectations of those relationships are different, and that the levels of reciprocity, that the expectations change from those different levels. We talk about conflict management, just different approaches to different situations, and when you should choose which one. The one doesn't fit all. So we try to, figure out which one's the best strategy for this particular context. We talk about dating, norms, and consent. We talk about unwritten rules, verbal and nonverbal communication, healthy boundaries. That's both respecting others' boundaries and setting boundaries themselves so that they feel respected and they know how to speak up when they don't feel like they're being fully respected. Then in the spring, we go more into the life skills. And I actually usually invite speakers from Vandal Health Education or Career Services, or another one we have is BEAMS, which is Better Education About Money for Students, or perhaps the Counseling and Testing Center would come in and speak on these different topics. And that's sort of their expertise. And then the students have to write a reflection on that or respond to prompts every week so that I could see they were paying attention and really thinking about the subject that was presented. So moving on to peer mentor support. Our peer mentors, as I said before, they are students, they're juniors and seniors. They have to have a 3.0 GPA or better when they apply, or program approval in some very rare cases. And these individuals, usually we have a lot of students who are going into education or psychology or pre-health, occupational therapy, but I get other majors. I get chemistry majors, I get animal veterinary science majors. So it's really not exclusive to any particular major. But these individuals really like working with others, they like helping others, and things that they can work on are like time management, making appointments with different places on campus, like academic coaching or tutoring, instructor office hours. They can be assigned one-on-one, or they just have scheduled drop-in hours. You can see here we have sort of a little round table in the student lounge where students can come and plug in their phones or their laptops and work in that common area. And that's often where a board game gets pulled out and students, or a card game when there's some downtime between classes. And that's one of the ways that they build on social skills, is through those conversations, playing games, just being present, getting to know each other, asking questions, and learning more about the individuals in the program. And we have our monthly social events, which the peer mentors are also strongly encouraged to attend. I try to schedule these at different days of the week, different times to get everybody who, there's such a diversity of schedules between the individuals in the Raven Scholars Program. And we also try to mix it up. We try to do different things. We've done, lots of different kind of game days, video games, board games. We did a casino day just last week. It was all virtual, but it was pretty fun. The students enjoyed it. We've done Halloween parties. We did Chinese New Year party. And then, we're open to creative suggestions. We really want individuals to be telling us, like one of the students suggested a May the 4th be with you party a few years ago. We weren't able to do it this year or last year because of COVID, but that was a really fun one. We just played the Star Wars movies all day and like had snacks and popcorn, and students just dropped in between classes when they could and watched part of a movie or a whole movie if they had the rest of the day off. So those are the kinds of things that we try to facilitate. And we really want those, to be inclusive of students with different ideas and different interests as well. And then we can also offer workshops occasionally where we'll have a guest speaker come in and teach on a particular skill. So moving on into some of the areas where we commonly see individuals on the autism spectrum really struggling their freshman year. There's some things that I definitely have recognized some patterns. And one of those big ones is refusing help. A lot of individuals in the autism spectrum, they feel like maybe, by college level, it's not appropriate for them to be receiving any accommodations, or that by disclosing that they're on the autism spectrum or they have a disability, that somehow instructors are going to feel that the students don't belong and that they're going to judge them, or they're going to be harsher, or they're going to feel like that they're getting some kind of an unfair advantage. And I would just really like to reinforce that that is not at all the case. The Americans with Disabilities Act accommodations are intended to level the playing field so that individuals with disabilities have equal access to that same education, and that is a right. And that there is absolutely no shame in using extra time on tests if you need it, or having a note taker in class, or using software to record a class so that you can better take your own notes, or whatever it is, at the college level, whatever the accommodations you receive in high school, whatever those are translated to, they're not all going to be the same. But that whatever is assigned to you because you need it to have the same advantages as your peers. So I just really would like to reinforce that there's no reason not to rely on those things, or, to not participate in a program like Raven Scholars, or, academic coaching, even if you didn't want something as specific to autism as the Raven Scholars program. But that those things are there for all students, and that it's a good thing. Another pitfall I see is freshmen who enter those, entry level like chemistry classes and things like that. And they might even stay right on the syllabus. Attendance is not required. And the truth is that high school chemistry to college chemistry is going to be a lot different expectations. The teaching style might be different. The testing style might be different. And often the individuals who lack the discipline to go to class lack the discipline to really follow through with that independent studying, and don't realize how far they are behind until they're already feeling and there's just not enough time to recover. Those 16 weeks in the semester go so fast. And if you're 6 to 8 weeks in and just now are learning that you've got a D or an F in the class, it's going to be a very difficult recovery. So my recommendation is do not fall for that. No attendance required. You got to treat it like it's your job. Your full-time job is to go to class. It's to show up. It's to learn as much as you can, to get the most out of the education that you can, and to do your best on those assignments, those tests, those quizzes. And then another area where I see the students who struggle the most are the ones who reject this time management concept, that feel like they can keep things in their head, and that they don't need to write things down. They don't need to use a planner or a calendar. And those are the students who, we see those early warning grades, we see those poor midterm grades, and then we're scrambling for the rest of the semester to try to get individuals back on track. The truth is I absolutely believe you that in high school, maybe you didn't need that, but at the college level, it's going to be so important. And again, it's that treating it like it's your full-time job. If you don't know what time you're supposed to be working and when, I don't know how you're going to do a good job at a job. And this is your full-time job. You're expected to be putting in 2 to 3 hours per week outside of the classroom. So that's like, up to 9 hours per class. You got 4 or 5 classes, that's more than a 40-hour-a-week commitment. So you really need to be using some kind of strategy to organize your time and to be knowing what's coming next. And that provides structure and that provides predictability. And that also shows your professors, if you have to go to those office hours, that you have been doing the work. You have evidence of that with that time management strategy. Last of all, before I get to questions and comments, I just wanted to highlight some areas where, if you are in high school right now, or if you're a parent of a high school student right now, areas where really working on this now is going to prevent a lot of heartache and difficulty in college. One of the ones that I see is students who come to college and who have never had to set their own alarm, get up out of bed, get themselves ready, and get to somewhere on time. At the college level, you might expect it to be at an 8 a.m. class, and that means, walking 15 minutes across campus in the snow. You really need to work on that self-discipline, setting those limits on entertainment like, social media, YouTube, video games, and socializing, so yes, we want you to do those things. Yes, we want you to have your entertainment, your socialization, but you have to be prioritizing those classes. And so if you are a student right now, or you're a parent of a student and you're recognizing that these things are being done for them rather than they're doing them for themselves, it's time to start practicing those skills. Another is compromise and boundaries. There's a lot of getting out of your comfort zone if you're living like in the dorms, or if you're working in a group. And a lot of college work is group work, especially in those like physics and chemistry and biology. A lot of those labs you're going to be set with a group. And if you don't know how to, first of all, share your needs and set those boundaries, but also to be willing to compromise and to take on things that maybe aren't your favorite. So those are things that are really good to be working on in high school. Self-care in college, when students come in and they've never had to manage their own medications, or somebody really prompts them regularly about hygiene routines, or getting to sleep, eating regular meals, or picking up their living areas, that's going to be a problem in college. You have to be able to keep your area clean. That's part of like the housing agreement at the University of Idaho. You need to be washing your own laundry. If you're eating in your dorm room, you're going to need to wash your own dishes. Your roommate's not going to like having dirty dishes laying around. So if you're not already doing these things, this is a good time to start before you get to the college level. And then again, time management. I cannot emphasize that enough, that's so important, to be organizing your time, making sure that you know how to use an online calendar like Google Calendar or Outlook Calendar, or an app. There's lots of apps out there. And that you're, not just managing just school, but you're also, if you have like, day-to-day events that you go to, extracurriculars, appointments, if you have a job, that you're also figuring out how to manage your time around those things too. And then finally, self-advocacy. So being honest with yourself and others about your learning needs and reaching out before it's too late, not waiting for a crisis, but being proactive and really making sure that you understand the instructions, that you're getting that clarification, and if needed, that you're utilizing those accommodations. That is part of that self-advocacy, is asking for help. All right, so how to apply. The Raven Scholars Program has an online application. So uidaho.edu/Raven Scholars, or you could just go to the UIdaho website and search Raven Scholars, you'll find it. We do have a wait list for fall 2021 and likely spring 2021. You can still apply, and we can still accept students conditionally under Tier 2, assuming that they meet certain conditions, that they're able to be independent enough, they don't need those weekly meetings. We just simply do not have the staff to accept more Tier 1 students after a certain level. We do accept students on a first come, first serve basis. So the earlier you apply, the more likely you are to get in if you're looking at fall 2022 or, spring 2023 or whatever. And you're welcome to set up a meeting with me if you just want to ask more questions, or if you want to really, get a better idea of what an individualized action plan looks like, or maybe what the Raven Room looks like. That's our student lounge, what I call it anyway. Then I'm happy to facilitate that with you. And so that is my presentation, but I did want to leave it open for questions if anybody has any. And these are also my contact, leslieag@uidaho.edu, and my number there. If it goes to voicemail, please leave a voicemail. I'm often in a meeting and I will answer the phone.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and turn on the chat so that people can ask questions. We are right